This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Welcome to Beering Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew, episode 8.
How are y'all doing tonight?
Do you expect someone to answer that question?
Every time I ask it, say some dumb shit after you start. You know, I expect something good from it.
That's pretty much that. Just get it off your chest.
Par for the course.
Yeah.
So let's talk about last week's episode, the politics of beer. Did that leave a lasting impression on you?
It couldn't have left a more lasting impression on me. The Texas beer politics slapped me in the fucking face on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it did.
So, I'm in charge of procuring the beer for the episodes. Apparently, because Drew's a cheapskate, and he never goes and gets the beer.
Yeah, I've always bum off Adam. Mr. Moneybags.
So, I'm going out Sunday afternoon to get the beer for this week's episode. And I go to Total Wine. It's a beer and liquor store in the Houston area. I go probably 3, 4 o'clock, middle of the day, Sunday afternoon.
Safe time to buy beer.
Supposedly safe time to buy beer. And they are freaking closed.
They just shut their doors when they saw you coming.
And I was so amped up to get some beer for this really cool episode that we have today. Nothing.
Just karma for you talking so much shit about Texas.
It really was. It was like Texas was like, you think our beer politics are stupid? Well, screw you. You're not getting beer for your beer podcast.
No beer for you. Yeah, the other lasting moment from last week is, you spent a good 3-4 minutes trashing my Trump impersonation, which I thought was a little harsh, So I checked, I got a little bit of fan mail last week. And so I read the mail.
Was it self-addressed envelopes?
Details are not important, who it was from or how many, but there was a little fan mail there. So I think when you tried to cancel my impersonation, I think the fans want more.
Drew may be referring to himself in third person, but
I got a sock fan. It's me. Got 3 email addresses.
I listened to it again, and it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Thank you.
No, that's not a compliment. That's less of an insult.
So what are we all about today? So I don't need to hear you talking more about my awesome impersonations. Let's talk about today's episode.
Today, we are here to celebrate the great month of October.
There are a lot of good things in October to celebrate.
There really are. First and foremost, it is my birthday month. And I think that is what Drew was referring to when he said that.
Ain't nobody care about your birthday.
That's not true. There is one person.
You're one fan from your email address.
So, in addition to my birthday being in the great month of October, we have Oktoberfest beer, which any beer fan is a fan of Oktoberfest season.
You look forward to it. Like once it's there, you're like, holy shit, it's fall. And you're like, yeah.
It's here. As soon as you start seeing the beers in the store, it's here.
You're throwing on your lederhosen and you're ready to go. So one thing exciting about our particular Oktoberfest episode, this is something we have never done on our show, is we're not only drinking 1 beer, not 2 beers, not 3 beers, we're drinking 4 different beers to compare side by side some Oktoberfest.
And it's not a comparison as far as I'm concerned. It is a battle. It is local versus state versus nation versus international.
I haven't even cracked this beer yet, and I'm already, taste buds are just going. What will it be?
All right. So do you want to tell them what we got, or do you need me to do the honor?
Well, I think I can handle it. Well, so we'll start local.
You screwed it up on take one, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, well, take one that's for the birds anyway. All right. First, our local beer. And this is from the Texas Leaguer Brewery in Missouri City, Texas. And secondly, we've got our state beer, which is the Altstadt Brewery Oktoberfest. And that's coming in from Fredericksburg, Texas. So I think this is distributed pretty widely in Texas. So we're going to call it our state beer. Coming in on the national stage, we're going to go with Bell's. It's a pretty widely recognized brewery, distributed most of the way across the U.S.
Where are they out of? They're out of Michigan?
They're out of Michigan, Comstock. And then lastly, for our international, this is one we kind of made a promise in our first episode of our podcast that we would never drink a beer that we've ever had before. And I think we quickly realized that rule number one of our podcast, what should it have been?
It should have been that there are no rules.
So whatever we've said, just throw it in the trash because we're gonna like break every promise we've ever made.
Anyone listening to this podcast knows that rules were made to be broken.
Absolutely. So I think for the name, we wanted to pick a widely recognized international Oktoberfest, and we're going with Spaten from the motherland in Germany themselves.
This will be interesting. We asked the local Houston beer groups what their favorite local Oktoberfest is, and that is how we landed on Mr. Oktoberfest from Texas Leaguer.
Yeah. Speaking of this local beer, why don't I just crack one of those bad boys open just to get us started?
Because we need to get started because otherwise it's going to be a long night.
All right. It's the only one out of the can, the rest in the bottle. We're going to talk a little bit about Oktoberfest.
What are we going to talk about with Oktoberfest?
So, like, what's your history with Oktoberfest? Have you ever been to an Oktoberfest event before?
I don't really think I have. I've drank a lot of Oktoberfest beers.
Are there a lot of Germans in Iowa?
There's some.
I feel like that's one of the strengths of Texas and why I think we need to have two Texas beers in this competition is that there's a lot of German immigrant history in Texas, and I think they make some pretty damn good Oktoberfest. And they also have some pretty good, German restaurants across the state that keep it corny and original with their polka and other things like that.
Corny and original.
Absolutely. Have you ever been to King's Beer Garden in Pearland?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard the yodeling guy?
Oh, I have.
There's nothing better than like walking in, lederhosen and all the other geared up stuff, drinking some warm German beer out of the big old steins and listening to some dude drop the F-bomb while he's yodeling. Like, that's about as good as it gets for me.
That is as good as it gets for Drew. You all heard it here.
What's great about that place is like I can just throw my kids and they just run around while they're playing the accordions and stuff like that. And I'm just drinking this massive beer. I'm like, yes, just stay entertained for a little while longer. My actual favorite place that I've been to was actually when we were living in the Bay Area in San Francisco. There was a place that I'm going to butcher the hell out of this name. It's called like Suppenkuchen or something. Suppenkuchen, I don't know. But that is a pretty badass restaurant in San Francisco, and they do this big Oktoberfest event in the city every year. And one night I went there and I showed up and I was the only motherfucker not wearing the full gear. But
I thought you were going to say the opposite. You were the only one wearing the full gear. Costume. I was hoping that's what you said.
I'm not like one to dress up, but like I looked around and I'm like, well, if they're all doing it, maybe I should. But the way I fit in is I started drinking that German beer, and I shit you not, that entire restaurant, they started like banging their fist on the table, and I just banged my fist on the table too. And it was like it was almost like the Man Show, where they're like, it was awesome. So
I haven't heard a Man Show reference for 10 to 15 years.
Our younger listeners won't understand. But it was like...
I'm not sure that we have any younger listeners. I'm also not sure if we have any older listeners.
Yeah. Well, at least we thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know, so you've never dressed up
for
Oktoberfest?
Never dressed up for Oktoberfest. Yet.
I feel like this is a challenge for our listeners. If you are talented with Photoshop, please take one of those great smiling pictures of Adam and turn it into an Oktoberfest photo, because I'd love to see it, because I could see him as a German dude.
Let's transition to the hidden agenda item on the show.
Oh, wait. There's a hidden agenda item.
There is a hidden agenda item. When Drew and I decided to put this podcast together, we wanted it to be centered around an app called Untappd that we absolutely love and we rate beer on.
One of the other things about the show early on is we knew that people would just get tired of hearing Adam and I talk together. And so eventually we were going to need to bring on some guests. And we came up with what we think is the perfect segment on what to do with our guests when they come on. Because, I mean, we don't just want to hear them talk. What we do, and we're going to test it out on ourselves, is it's going to be called an Untappd Roast, where we do research on someone's Untappd and find some probing questions to ask them.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners don't know what Untappd is, you need to go and download it right now. Because if you're listening to this podcast, Untappd will change your life. It is the best way to describe it is like it is the Facebook of beer.
The Facebook of beer.
Where instead of posting pictures of you and your family,
the food you ate.
And the food that you ate, you can post pictures of your beer and rate your beer on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best.
So when we bring guests on, when we do this, maybe it won't be all making fun of them. Maybe we'll ask some like curiosity questions on the best beer.
There will be no curiosity questions.
But with you and I, you know, it's just like down to the battle time.
It's getting down there.
So we have not told each other what we've researched on each other's Untappd. So I think it's time for the Untappd battle. Who's going first?
Bring it on. Bring it on.
You feel like you've got the closer. That's why you're letting me go first.
Bring it on. Bring it on. I have something in my back pocket.
Ooh, that's mysterious. All right. So I'll hit you with my first one here. So we've mentioned in the previous episode that you were a late joiner to Untappd. You know, you were trying to catch up. And so I noticed that your very first post on Untappd, you checked in 12 beers on one night. So my question to you is, were you just trying to pad your stats, or were you trying to show how much body mass you have and how many beers you can put down in one night?
I wanted to show all of my inferior volume followers like Drew that 12 beers in one night is possible. It can be done.
You're going to kill me if I do 12 beers.
I didn't want to come in with like a gradual entrance. I wanted to come in hot. And I did. Mission
accomplished.
Where was it? Where was I?
I think you were probably on your couch in your media room. I'm here drinking 12 beers by myself, drowning myself in my tears. So what you got for me?
Okay. So I am going to give you a list of beers, and you tell me which one is the outlier. Pussy Wagon by Brash in Houston, IPA. Endeavor by St. Arnold, double IPA. Houston Hazier by Spindle Tap, double hazy IPA. And Sierra Nevada, Hazy Little Thing.
I see where you're going with this.
Tell me if there is an outlier.
I know you want me to say Hazy Little Thing is the outlier. But it was one of my first loves of hazy, so don't like make fun of the fact that I was really high on that beer when I first had it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think one of those doesn't fit with the others, you would not know that by Drew's rating because those were all the same rating. 3 tremendous beers, 1 mediocre at best beer. And so if I would offer you any of those 4 beers, would you have a preference which one you had?
I probably wouldn't take the hazy little thing. I know that's what you want to say. All right, that was pretty good. That was good. So number 2 on here, and I'm actually going to go back and refer to one of those 12 beers that you rated because you really don't have a lot of history on here. I've got double or triple your beers on there. I'm pretty sure.
From now, you see the trend.
You picked one that was like mind-blowingly low. And I was trying to decide, like, if someone had, like, peed in your Cheerios that day, or, like, my other thought in my head is this was an IPA that I found was a pretty solid IPA, but you rated it at a 2.0, which is, like, it's really low. I don't know if I've ever seen you rate an IPA that low.
No.
So I'm wondering, like, was that your first taste of an IPA? And it's kind of like, oh, I don't know if I like these. I'm used to drinking Miller Lite. So the beer was Cloud 8. By Eighth Wonder Brewery, and you gave it a 2.0.
A 2.0. Wow.
Yeah, you must have been pissed at Eighth Wonder
I
at
was
that point.
I was mad at life and even more mad at Eighth Wonder.
For comparison, I actually rated that one a 4.0. So I doubled up. I don't like you and I usually are like on point with our beer ratings, and I doubled you on that one.
Well, I was just, at that time, I was trying to create some differentiation in my ratings.
You wanted to, like, create, like, a real bell curve.
Yeah. I thought that was what you needed to build up your stats.
Yeah, I got you. What you got?
So if we're going to go on the low end, there's one beer that you have on your low end that seems like quite the outlier to me. And I think my listeners will appreciate that. So, Yuengling Traditional Lager. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
What would you expect your rating of that beer to be?
You know what's funny about Yuengling is when I wasn't a big craft beer drinker, I had that once when I was visiting Philadelphia, and I was like, this beer is amazing. And I built this like great vision that was my beer. And then when I was in Florida, I was like, I should go get some Yuengling because they distribute it there. And I bought some and I drank it. And it was like I had set this expectation for myself so high that I drank it. And I was like, fuck this beer. So I probably rated it low because I remember being very disappointed when I drank it again for the second time.
I remember a couple weekends ago, we had an IPA that was probably the worst IPA I've had with you. And you rated that a 2.75. And that was a dump it out type of beer.
Yeah.
And so you rated Yuengling 2.5.
Dang. That was a pretty low rating. All right, so I'm going to hit you up with my third and final Untappd Roast. And that is not about a beer. It's about an untapped behavior. And so today, Adam, I need to pull you aside and we need to talk about being a cyber bully. Because you have a tendency to look at other people's ratings and say, that's too low, or why are you not rating this beer? And you're trying to impose your will on others. And so I think you need to play a little nicer. This is a culture where folks cannot handle that kind of adversity.
I will never listen to your bullshit. So,
or you can hit me with the third.
Oh, I'm coming hard.
That's what she said.
Okay. So, a couple of episodes ago, we talked about your favorite beers. Do you remember what beers you said in that episode? What types of beer?
I think so.
Okay. And was Pilsner one of those?
Yeah, I said Pilsner was one of those.
Okay. And you've told me on several occasions that pre-war Pilsner was the best Pilsner you've ever had.
Ooh. Did I rate one higher?
The favorite type of beer and the best beer was only a 4.0.
Yeah?
That's it.
You know, I would re-rate it higher probably after I had the fifth one, but you shamed me for changing my Untappd rating, so I had to stick with it.
All right. So enough of this nonsense. It is time for us to talk about the ultimate battle of the Oktoberfest.
Let's bring on the ratings.
All right. So we have tasted all 4 Oktoberfest, and now we have what I will call the great reveal.
When you say like rated and drank the Oktoberfest, we've been standing here with like calculators with each one of these beers trying to compare them because they're all so similar. This is like maybe one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life.
This is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. They're all like really good beers.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I can't talk about the differences between the beers because like they're all good. There's like one beer stood out to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Are you ready to reveal that one beer that stood out to you?
We're starting from the bottom.
Now we hear.
Okay. So what was your least favorite beer, Drew?
So my least favorite beer out of this was actually the local beer.
Wow.
The Texas Liger was my least favorite.
Interesting.
Not saying it's a bad beer. This was an incredibly tough decision, but it was probably the most carbonated, and it just, the taste of it just wasn't the taste I was looking for in an Oktoberfest today.
Would you buy it again?
I'd buy like any Oktoberfest again in the month of October, but I wouldn't buy it in July.
For me, Bell's came in at number 4. So similar to how Mr. Oktoberfest didn't provide the flavor that you're looking for in an Oktoberfest, Bell's was just had a little too subtle maltiness for me and didn't have a complex enough finish.
I mean, that's actually the segue into my number 3 beer was Bell's for the same reasons. I felt like this was the cleanest and smoothest though. So that's why I didn't put it at number 4. It was a really smooth beer, very clean, but you're right. There was not like that overwhelming Oktoberfest flavor in it. So that's why I put it at number 3. What was your number 3?
My number 3 was extremely close to my number 4. Altstadt, the Texas state beer, according to this podcast, was my number 3.
Okay.
Still a good beer. One I'd buy again.
My number 2 beer, which surprised me when it beat out some national and local, is my number 2 beer was actually the Spaten Oktoberfest.
Well, coming in at number 2 for me was also Spaten Oktoberfest.
It was the darkest looking one out of the group, but like it has that taste that I just remember because I've had a lot of them, and it's a very enjoyable Oktoberfest beer.
There will not be an October that comes through my life that I don't buy a 6-pack of Spaten Oktoberfest. Who is number 1?
For me, the number 1 beer was actually the Altstadt beer from Fredericksburg, Texas. And I know there's some Germans up in Fredericksburg and around that area. What I liked about that beer is it didn't have that overwhelming maltiness. It just had a subtle, bready, toasty flavor that I just love in an Oktoberfest. I kept going back and forth what my favorite was, and that one just stuck out of my mind as the one that I like the most.
It's interesting because what you didn't like about Texas Liger is what I did like about
taste.
Texas Liger. And it was a little more carbonated than the others. And it had like a sweeter finish than the other ones. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you noticed that.
I noticed that it was maltier. And I know you are you're a malt
I am
bomb
a malt
fan.
machine.
You're
and
like,
so
malt bomb?
the first sip I had, I was like, God damn, that's a good Oktoberfest. Now we have to talk about Untappd ratings. One of the rules of this rating process was that we weren't allowed to look at Untappd for any of our past ratings as well as any average Untappd rating. So this was truly a blind rating, and Drew and I didn't talk at all prior to going on air revealing our rankings. What is your rating of your lowest beer?
So the Texas Leaguer, I actually went with a 3.5.
Oh my God. What a slap in the face to the Houston area.
That's what I was feeling at this moment.
Maybe you'll edit it tomorrow morning.
So since that was your top, what did you...
I'm going 4.25.
Wow, that is a pretty big swing.
It's not often. It is very rare that we have a 0.75 difference between the two of us. But it is a malt machine worthy of a 4.25.
It's impressive. So if that was your tops, my tops was Altstadt, and I'm going to go with a 4.0 for that one. So that's my range.
Not bad. My lowest one was Bell's at a 3.75. Good beer. I've had better. I've had worse.
Man, you need to find a new phrase. Yeah, I agree. Like, that was actually my rating for Bell's, and also for Spaten. I went both of those 3.75. That's just a solid rating for both.
Yeah, I went 3.75 on Altstadt. I went a 4.0 on Spaten. And what is interesting is the last time I rated Spaten, I went a 4.0 without checking or doing any homework. So it's a testament to my consistency.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's about time to wrap this episode up.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this very, very beer-focused beer podcast.
Yep. 4 beers in, plus the pregame beer. Now we need to see...
Beers.
We need to see Adam photoshopped in Lederhosen, and then we can close this episode.
We're not seeing that. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you all next time.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Co-working Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our Untappd handles are Beering Ain't Easy Adam and Beering Ain't Easy Drew. If you enjoyed today's music, it was 4 Beers Polka by Kevin McLeod from Incompetech.com.